The weird world of Illuminati celebrity kids. There are many people who believe that Amanda Bynes is actually a victim of Monarch mind control. It's an Illuminati practice widely used by the Walt Disney Corporation and Teen Nick to monetize and sexualize young stars and starlets. To understand the history of mind control and its association with Hollywood, you would have to look into Operation Paperclip. And this was when, after the fall of Nazi Germany, America brought over many of its top scientists and eugenicists. There's multiple resources on this information if you're interested. Many people have talked about this in detail, about the connection between Nazi scientists and mind control. And more specifically, in this case, monarch mind control being used in Hollywood or in entertainment in general. And many people believe that over the years the CIA has actually perfected these methods to subdue American citizens. Monarch mind control is being used by the Hollywood industrial complex to micromanage child stars. In this case, the monarch mind controlled victims are called kittens. And the executives and managers that control them are known as handlers. So according to the many sources that have revealed this information, the handlers would take a precocious kitten, such as, say, an Amanda Bynes, and then subject her to mental and sexual abuse until her personality actually fractures and separates, making her more of an unquestioning and compliant kitten. So in most cases, rather shockingly, this actually goes off without a hitch. But in some cases, the young performer can't stand the confusing transition anymore from tween star to men's magazine cover girl, and starts to malfunction much like the robot that she has essentially become. Now, we've seen several cases of this in the mainstream media, and we just didn't know what to call it perhaps at the time. And oftentimes you'll find really interesting parallels between a lot of these stories. For instance, Brittany Spears, I believe, is a classic case of this form of mind control we've seen actually manifest out of Hollywood. Just like Amanda, Brittany had shaved her head at one point and dressed really weird, started acting out really crazy. She was eventually placed under a 5150 hold. This was back in 2008. Now, Amanda Bynes' family recently placed her under a 5150 hold as well. Now, Brittany Spears is still under what they call a conservatorship, which isn't really that much different than having a handler. This means she's constantly being watched. And Amanda's mother has actually said in public that she hopes to place her daughter under a similar conservatorship as well. It's really interesting whenever you look at the older pictures of a lot of these so-called Illuminati celebrities and see what the system has turned them into. Go back to their childhood, see what they started off as, right? And let's see where they're at now, after all these years under this so-called Illuminati control. It really makes you wonder. When you look at a picture like this is Miley Cyrus. And here's Miley Cyrus now, after years of being under this Illuminati control, or really satanic control, out of the satanic elements of Hollywood, or the entertainment industry in general. Here's another example. This is actress Taylor Momsen. She was in Gossip Girl. She was also Cindy Lou Who from the Grinch movie. And this is her now, after years and years and years of working in that industry. What happened? Beta is also referred to as sexual programming or slave programming. This programming eliminates all learned moral convictions and stimulates the primitive instincts, devoid of all inhibitions. At this point, many cat alters will actually come out, known as Kitten Programming. It is the most visible kind of programming of some of these female celebrities, models, actresses, and singers. In popular culture, clothing with feline prints often denote kitten programming. This is also the second Greek letter, beta, and it represents the sexual models and sexual alters that the programmers are creating. The primitive part of the brain is involved in this type of programming. An early sexual abuse event will be used to anchor this programming. So these sexual slaves will develop sexual abilities that are far beyond what the public is aware is even possible. They also receive the worst kind of abuse, far beyond what most people's imaginations can actually picture. Beta alters generally see themselves as cats. course, it's hard to say just what level of mind control any one of these celebrities have to undergo. I imagine it's a case-by-case basis. Something else I find interesting, though, is to sometimes actually take a look at the parents. There's a lot of interesting things happening with a lot of the parents who are behind many of these young stars and starlets who came up through the industry. For instance, this is Joe Simpson. This is Jessica Simpson's father. The man he's with right there is a young model, and apparently he's supposed to be one of Joe's clients. But there have been gay rumors swirling around for a very long time about these two, since they've been seen on the beach lounging together and all around the city shopping together for a really long time. It's also really interesting to note that Joe Simpson was a youth minister a long time ago, back when Jessica Simpson was really little. And then his daughter got into the industry and they moved to LA, and the rest is history. But just within the last year or so, Joe Simpson actually divorced his wife of 35 years. And since then, again, he's been seen more and more with this young, quote, client. So I'll leave that up to you to decide. Now, any of you who know about this so-called Illuminati symbolism or satanic symbolism we see all over the place, you understand that Katy Perry is one of the main people out there, at least right now in the mainstream, that's really pushing a lot of this stuff forward, a lot of this mystery religion stuff, right? So it's interesting to find out that her father was also a youth minister as well, and apparently he's still a pastor. And this is him right here. And just like Joe Simpson, Jessica Simpson's father, he seems very, metrosexual, I guess to say the least, right? It's very flashy for a preacher. Maybe this is the way they do it in LA, I don't know. But it makes me wonder, since these guys came from what I would assume are humble beginnings, especially being preachers and ministers, is this what Hollywood has done to them, even the fathers, these men who started off working for God, right, in service to God? Has the system actually mutated them and changed them into this? And the Jonas Brothers is yet another example of kids coming up through the Hollywood system, the Illuminati system, whose father was actually a minister. And speaking of the Jonas Brothers, or young kids coming up through this Hollywood Illuminati beast system, I found this article really interesting here, and it's from Joe Jonas. It's Joe Jonas reveals how Disney puppet masters control their teen stars. Let's check this out. In this interview, we learned that after almost a decade in the music business, Joe Jonas, at 25, finally has control of his life. But we also get a rare glimpse behind the scenes of Disney, the machine that churns out products for kids, tweens, and teens to consume, and how it feels to be one of those products. Joe and his brothers were into two things growing up: their church and their music. They recorded their first album independently, but later they were signed by Hollywood Records, a subsidiary of Disney. And when Joe Jonas gets into the Disney stuff, it gets really interesting. He says, "Everything completely changed when Disney entered the picture. They were geared toward a younger market, and we had a younger audience, so we started doing some Disney concerts, Disney Christmas concerts, and Disney roller coaster openings. Then we made a music video for a cover song that we initially didn't want to do because we hadn't written it. It was called The Year 3000, exclusively for Disney, which led them to start playing the song on Radio Disney and the video on Disney Channel. Before we knew it, our fan base was huge." And Disney is huge. It's a conglomerate with a revenue of over $42 billion. So it's no surprise when a product marketed and pushed by Disney succeeds. But you have to wonder about the personal cost. How much a person's intimate personal life is controlled by that conglomerate? Joe Jonas says that Disney is great at creating fame. They've done it with so many pop stars and young actors, from Hilary Duff to the High School Musical crew. Miley Cyrus played an already famous pop star on a Disney show, Hannah Montana, and as we were starting to blow up, we got a boost by playing ourselves as her favorite band on her show. And that was definitely our first major love shown by Disney, and I think it might have been a trial to see whether they should give us a show on our own, and eventually they did. We got a sitcom called Jonas, in which we played characters named Kevin, Joe, and Nick Lucas, members of an already famous band. But the thing about the show was that some of the writing on it was just terrible. It just ended up being some weird slapstick humor that only a 10-year-old would laugh at. They took out the kissing scene that Nick had. I had to shave every day because they wanted me to pretend like I was 16 when I was actually 20. We went along with it at the time because we thought Disney was our only shot, and we were terrified that all of it could be taken away from us at any moment. Being a part of a company like that comes with certain expectations. Not overtly, but there was a subtle vibe. We were working with Disney in 2007 when Vanessa Hudgens' nude photo scandal happened. We heard that she had to be in the Disney offices for a whole day because they were trying to figure out how to keep her on lockdown. We'd hear execs talking about it, and they would tell us that they were so proud of us for not making the same mistakes, which made us feel like we couldn't ever mess up. We didn't want to disappoint anyone, our parents, our fans, our employers, so we put incredible pressure on ourselves, the kind of pressure that no teenager should ever have to go under. One relationship that meant a lot to fans was the one I had with Demi Lovato, who I've known for years. We'd been friends forever. We were both Disney kids, and because we played a couple in the Camp Rock Disney Channel specials, and fans liked seeing us together, we eventually dated for about a month. I really got to know her and got to see the ins and outs of what she was struggling with, like drug abuse. I felt like I needed to take care of her, but at the same time I was living a lie, because I wasn't happy but felt like I had to stay in it for her, because she needed the help. I couldn't express any of that, of course, because I had a brand to protect. The first time I smoked weed was with Demi and Miley. I must have been about 17 or 18. They kept saying, try it, so I gave it a shot. I even remember that I used to sneak out and hook up with this one girl in her car, and some rumor came out along the lines of teen pop stars seen in the back of a car in a parking lot hooking up, and the write-up was kind of explicit, so I kept thinking, oh my god, there's going to be video, there's going to be photos. And the girl was also in the business, and we thought we were screwed over because we were both working with Disney. It would have been the worst thing ever could have happened to us, but nothing ever came out about it. And that pretty much wraps up that article, but I thought it was interesting once again. I mean, obviously he's restrained in what he can tell the public, I'm sure, but that does give some insight on the extreme control that Disney has over all of its young stars. And of course, there have been hints in the past about the micromanaging that went on with Disney stars like Brittany Spears, Justin Timberlake, Ryan Gosling, Vanessa Hudgens, and even Zac Efron. Different love lives manipulated for the benefit of the press, images of these people torn down and rebuilt back up, idol worship really. And when some of these celebrities act out, quote unquote, we start seeing these crazy stories out in the media. Again, having this understanding of mind control, and that this really does exist out there in the entertainment industry, gives us further insight into what may be actually taking place. And Lindsay Lohan is another really interesting case of before and after. I mean, take a look right here. This is back when, I guess, as far as her beauty is concerned, she was probably in her prime, because it didn't take her very many years in this Illuminati industry to turn out like this. And you have to ask yourself once again, what happened? What happened? So maybe this will give us some clues. I remember this story from a while back, a few years ago. I covered it back then as well. But what do Lady Gaga and Lindsay Lohan do at their sleepovers? Now, this was a party that had taken place apparently at Chateau Marmont, and this is in Los Angeles. Other stories were saying that Lana Del Rey was there with them as well. And then there's also a photographer, and this one was really interesting. Her name is Ellen Von Unworth. Now, Ellen Von Unworth is yet another one of these witches working in the industry. She's a famous photographer. She takes a lot of pictures of a lot of these so-called Illuminati artists. But the thing that's most important to understand about her as a photographer and an artist is the kind of symbolism that she's putting out there. Here's a photo she did of Victoria Beckham, of course, with the one-eye symbolism there. This is another one of her photos. This is Rihanna, once again with the one-eye symbolism. And this is a really famous picture itself. And this is a photo of Mila Jovovich. And once again, we have the one-eye symbolism there. And here's yet another photo of Mila. And again, we see a little bit of the one-eye symbolism there, and of course the devil horns. Something else I noticed when looking up this lady's photographs, again, it wasn't all just one-eye symbolism, whatever. There's all kinds of symbolism in all these different pictures. But she also does a lot of pictures like this with just fashion models and for magazines and whatnot. Once again, we see the cage right here, and that's a very common symbol. Once again, the canary in the cage, you'll see that a lot as well. That's a really common symbol for mind control also. And here's just another example of the mind control themes she uses in some of her photos. It says Courtney Love she's taken a picture of, but of course she has all the monarch butterflies. So once again, you'll see that as a very common symbol in a lot of music videos and movies and TV shows and ads. But it all goes back to that, once again, monarch mind control. So I think we've seen enough images of this photographer to understand that she's in the know. You know, she gets it. She's a part of this beast system. She's putting forth a lot of these occult ideas that are very common in this Illuminati entertainment industry. So here's the story that a lot of people didn't see. This is the night after the slumber party. And take a look at this. That's the back of Lindsay Lohan's head. It says, "Did Lady Gaga pull out Lindsay Lohan's hair?" And here's another photo that they put out from the night after the slumber party. Even just looking at her face over there on the left, I mean, does she look like she had a good time? Does it look like it was just a fun little slumber party? A couple girls getting together to have a little popcorn and watch some movies? Well, I highly doubt that, especially considering the people that were involved in the party and the kind of occult symbolism these people are constantly promoting. But you really have to wonder what happened to her hair. You know, what kind of torture was she going through? Was this some kind of a ritual? Who knows? But by the look on her face, doesn't look like she had a very good time. And then we have this story right here. It just came out a few weeks back, and it was this kind of bizarre rant that Lindsay Lohan put on her Instagram. It says here, "They always come back. I love you, NYC. They always come back. I love you, NYC. Miss you as my real only private friend. For you, God, for all hurts and wrongs, please let me forgive. Allah, please let me be forgiven, and all forgive themselves. Please and thank you. Someone I was with the night before several towers fell. It felt like not a curse, but more like a spell. What we think in America is not always clear. We don't have PETA commercials. You just killed deer. With this being said, I'm a girl with a reputation. It should be misled, but it's mislead. Like a diamond in the rough, you know." Now listen to this part here. "For 25 years, you've seen me on TV and screen." And this is where she is telling us a little more, okay? But she says, "So I am programmed," and then there's the pyramid, "to stand tough." And for your confirmation here, she says, "Black or white." So we got the duality again. This is the occult she's speaking of. And again, a lot of these people go through this. Black or white. You got the tiled floors, right? The Masonic tiled floors. This is the duality. So black or white. In life, rather than love, we create a fight of an ideal situation, of an unexceptional yet unacceptable future. That's TMZ and Harvey Weinstein and all that, couldn't and wouldn't even care to describe any thought of the people who forget to help when a franchise film comes out, and if money means more than freedom, then stay in California. If helping others is a passion, talk to Angelina Jolie. If you want to be a brilliant actress, work with Meryl Streep. At the end of the day, Republicans or Democrats, be here now. Live with integrity or go to sleep. The most beautiful life comes cheap. Stop fighting and using artists for distractions. It's boring. So you really have to ask yourself when you see things like this again, is this just another example of one of these young starlets trying to break free from that system? And speaking of a lot of these Illuminati artists and a lot of the things they put out in social media, that story reminded me of this one from Brittany Spears. This one happened a few years back. You may remember this. It only lasted about a day, but on Twitter she put a few messages up, and one of them right here says, "Hope that the New World Order will arrive as soon as possible, Brittany." And then right underneath that it says, "I give myself to Lucifer every day for it to arrive as quickly as possible. Glory to Satan." Now these messages were quickly scrubbed by the end of the day once this was out, but luckily a lot of people had grabbed some screen captures of this. So it's interesting, you know, they were trying to say, oh, her account was hacked. You know, that's what happened. Was it that it was hacked, or was this really Brittany, you know, the person who actually had access to the account? Is this something she really put out there? And did she put it out there because she really believes this, or is she cracking? Is this just another example of all that fragmentation that she's had to deal with? This is Paris Jackson, daughter of the king of pop, Michael Jackson. And she too released some really interesting messages out on Instagram a while back. So not long ago, Paris Jackson actually put a lot of really interesting information out on her social media. It's one of her tweets right here. It says, "A secret society is not really secret if you know what you're looking for. So don't wait for the info to come to you. Take time to seek it out for yourself." This is where it got really disturbing. She actually released a few drawings that she did. If you're not familiar with the subject of satanic ritual abuse, you should look into that, because this is a very common kind of a picture a lot of kids have drawn in the past of such things. And here's another picture that she tweeted out, and of course it's the skull, the cracked skull, and of course with the shh, it's got the finger over the lips. And of course that shh symbol is yet another very, very common Illuminati symbol or satanic symbol of the inner occult workings of the Hollywood industry. It's all about keeping secrets. These are secret societies. These are people that work in shadows, so they're told to keep their lips pressed, keep the secrets. You also have the strange case of Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie's child Shiloh. It's a young girl, their oldest biological child, but she prefers to wear suits instead of dresses and wants to be called John. And apparently Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie are totally cool with that. And that reminded me of a story about one of Gwen Stefani's kids. And of course Gwen Stefani is yet another one of these very popular mainstream Illuminati artists. And she's constantly seen, once again, just like all the other sold-out Illuminati artists, putting out all the symbols that she's supposed to. The 666, the horns, the shh, the one eye, the whatever. And this right here is a picture of one of her sons, and this is a story that came out a while back. But I remember this is the picture they kept running with, talking about how cool it was that Gwen Stefani wanted her little boys to be able to wear makeup if they wanted to. So once again, kind of like Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie, pushing forth that transgender agenda, which we know is a New World Order agenda. And one of the big reasons that the New World Order is pushing this LGBT agenda so hard goes back to sustainability, or ultimately about the wiping out of the human race. And that's just some strange things about some Illuminati kids. Hey, thanks for watching.